Good morning. Oh, I need to turn this on. All right, how is that? Good? Okay. Ooh, okay. All right, if you saw the title of this sermon, which I expect the slides to show up in a few seconds. I need the clicker. There it is. I expect the slides to show up in a few moments. The title of the sermon is The Stone of Great Price, which is a mix of two verses, the cornerstone, Jesus being the cornerstone. There we go. The stone the builders rejected, and then the other verse being the merchant looking for fine pearls, what we also often call the pearl of great price. But the center verse that I'm going to be talking about is instead the parable of the sower, the verse that was read a few minutes ago. Now, before I get started, I want to give a welcome to our visitors. I'm not the usual preacher, and so if you don't like how I talk, or if you don't like the lesson, come back next week. It'll be somebody else. And I want to thank the elders for giving me this opportunity. It forces me to push, it forces me to learn, it forces me to really study. And it also improves your prayer life a lot when you're going to preach, because you're praying so hard that you will not mess up. Also, this is a sermon on the day before Christmas. It's not a Christmas sermon, but it is still about the greatest gift that God gave to us. My goal here is to encourage each of us to keep a tight hold of our faith. Not just personally, not just each one of you individually, but as a team, to help each other keep a tight hold of our faith. This is a sermon aimed at me, because I'm not good at this either. And I'm hoping that it will help you and help us all as a team. To start off, that word stone, when you hear it in a sermon, what do you think of? More than likely, you're thinking about the cornerstone, the stone the builders rejected. And that's right. I mean, this time, if you've been in Bible class, you know that's almost always the right answer, Jesus. But that is the topic today, but I'm going to start by first talking about a different stone. Come on, please. Is it on? Ah. There we go. This stone, it's similar in some ways, but very different in others. This is the New Delhi sapphire. It's actually an amethyst, even though it's called a sapphire. And it's a very interesting stone with a fascinating history. Like many gems, it was stolen. It was stolen in 1857 by a British soldier in India. But after he got home, years later, he started having terrible luck. His finances were awful, his family started having illnesses, and he decided that stone, it must be cursed. Never mind that he had stolen it. That couldn't possibly be the reason. So he decided, well, I better get rid of this. So first he tried to give it to one friend, and that friend said, no. I'm not taking your cursed stone. So finally he found somebody to give it to. He gave it to a scientist. He gave it to a scientist named John Heron Allen. And John Heron Allen didn't believe in curses, so he said, sure, I'll take the stone. He then had it mounted in this jewelry, you see. It's said that that's a ring, and I can't tell that it's a ring. But then he started having his own series of bad luck. He had bad finances, his family started suffering illnesses, and so he tried to get rid of that stone. He tried to give it to the first friend. The friend's like, no. Second friend, the friend, Finally, he decided, I have to get rid of this thing. So he walked down to the river, the canal in London. It's gone. He got rid of that stone. Except a few months later, somebody dredged the river and found the stone. And they took it to a jeweler and said, he was an honest man. He took it to a jeweler and said, this isn't mine. Whose is it? It's obviously worth a whole lot of money. And the jeweler said, oh, well, I'm the one who put this stone in this piece of jewelry. I recognize it. I know who it belongs to. And he was an honest man, and he took it back to John Heron Allen. John Heron Allen wanted to get rid of his stone. He tried hard to get rid of his stone. He couldn't get rid of it. In contrast, we need to hold on to our stone, but all too often it will slip away. Now, just a second. Some of you are probably thinking, well, not me. I'm a strong Christian. I've been a Christian a long time. That's good and it's bad. I mean, you have that confidence, you have that assurance, you have that experience. That's good. Is it false confidence? Is it false assurance? Is it false strength? That's bad. Is it focusing only on you and not on the team? That's bad, bad, bad. And that's one of the reasons I'm giving this sermon. All right. Statistics. If you know me, you know I'm a scientist and I'm a computer programmer. I get into numbers really heavily. Statistics are kind of like the weather forecast. It may or may not be true. It just kind of gives you hints about what might happen. It's been studied, and statistically, active practicing Christians leave the faith about 1% per year, each person. So looking around, on average, 1% of you will not be Christians next year. 10 years from now, 10% of you will not be Christians. That sounds terrible. I mean, if you take it to the extreme, you can say 100 years from now, none of you will be Christians. But that's not the way the math works, luckily. What are the symptoms here? I said active practicing Christians. The symptoms is you stop being active, you stop practicing, and at the end, you stop being a Christian. In Matthew 26:22, when the Lord was asking the different apostles, he wasn't asking, he was telling the different apostles, one of you will betray me. And each one of them said, surely not me, not me. Don't you think they were scared? What if he had said, well, of course he did say to Judas, it will be you. But each of them was probably trembling, saying, surely I won't leave Christ. I won't forsake him. And yet, in the end, they all forsook him. They all scattered. How does this happen? You see the picture here, and the verse I wrote, the parable of the sower. Sin is sneaky. Sin will trick you. Sin will tell you, I won't be tempted. Or, it's all right to be tempted, as long as I don't do it. It was just once. I'm still fine. Just once more, then I'll stop. Sin will tell you, it's fine, I go to church. I'm still all right. Sin will tell you, I can study the Bible tomorrow, or the day after that. Or, I don't really need to study the Bible. Sin will tell you, I can go to church next week. I just missed it once, it's okay. Or I can do something about this next year, or the year after that. It can be sometime later when it's more convenient. Sin leads you away just one little step at a time, while still telling you that you're fine, everything's just fine. So what do? The parable of the sower. I'm going to break this into 3 parts. The seed on the wayside. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is he who received the seed by the wayside. In Hosea, the 4th chapter, God says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. This is one of the ways that we lose our faith. A lack of knowledge. Or more likely, we think we already know. Sin will tell us we already know enough. And some of you may say, I already know enough. That's sin talking to you right now. You may say, I think I can get by with what I know. I'm learning still. Good, but does your neighbor, do the other people here that are on your team, do they know enough? This is a team sport. Oh, it's not a sport at all. Someone here doesn't know enough. What are we doing to teach them? I imagine that none of you here are confused by just how confused the world is about Bible knowledge. But I'm going to give a few quick examples. The first one is something that made me laugh. It's someone asked an AI to draw a painting about something in the Bible. And probably some of you have seen this. It was pretty popular on the internet a few months ago. Yeah, I didn't understand. It took the words and it drew a painting, but it didn't understand. Jesus flipping over the tables in the temple. Sure, the computer got the words right, but it didn't understand. Obviously, we know what's wrong here. But this is how we know the Bible. We understand what's wrong here. Somebody in the world who just hears these words, somebody out who's never read the Bible themselves, they might not get the reference. Two other examples I have is the old, I guess it's a joke at this point, it's probably a preacher story of the children's Bible class where they asked, who is the wife of Noah? And the most accepted answer for the children was Joan of Arc. And then something with my own children, each day they give each other a quiz over what they're studying in the Bible. Right now they're working through the book of Acts, and they give a quiz to my youngest, who's 7, and the quiz was, who was there in the upper room after Jesus' ascension? And my youngest, he says, Peter, James, John, Andrew, because he had memorized it. They had made him memorize it because they quiz each other. Peter, James, John, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, James, Simon, Judas, and married the mother of Jesus. They married the mother of Jesus. He got the words, he didn't get the meaning. Sure, those are all funny. But even here in this room, in a typical church, there'll be things that we don't understand. Even though we've read the Bible, we don't understand. A common one that I always think of is in John 2, when Jesus turns the water into wine. Well, there's a problem there, because in the world, most people say he turned the water into wine and everybody got drunk. That is not the meaning of the word. The word wine in Greek, there's only one word for grape juice in Greek. It's the word oino, which we take the word wine from. It kind of sounds the same, oino and wine. Grape juice and wine are both the same word in Greek. It's oino. And some of you may say, well, right after that it says, when the guests have well drunk. That's what it says in the Bible. They've well drunk. Well, it doesn't mean that they were drunk. It means they had had plenty to drink. They weren't thirsty. We take those words and we mush them together, and we take different meanings from them. And someone else, I've heard this argument, he says, the wine taster said it was the best wine. Well, you have to remember, in the first century, alcohol was rancid. In other words, this was the cleanest, the freshest wine he had ever tasted. All right, let's move on. The seed on stony ground, easily uprooted. But he who received the seed on stony places, this is he who received the word, immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. This is a quote. I'm not sure what the original source is. I got it from one author that I really like, but it may go back. I'm sure they're all just quoting each other. Man is not a rational creature. He is a rationalizing creature. Now, an example of this, of how when we run into trouble, when we run into difficulties, we choose the easiest way out. And a lot of times we'll give up our Christianity. And I have this story in history. It's, as far as I can tell, a true story about the country of Khazaria. Most of you in the audience are probably like, Khazaria, I've never heard of it. That's because it doesn't exist anymore. Khazaria is about where we have Kazakhstan now. It's on the east side of the Black Sea. It's southern Russia and Kazakhstan. And the story goes that the king of Kazakhstan, Khazaria, brought in, well, he had a problem. His country was pagan. And he had Christians coming in on the west and the north, and he had Islam coming in on the south. And he said, I'm trapped. I'm smashed between this sandwich, and they all hate each other. And they're going to war with each other, and I'm in the middle. This is bad. And so he brought in 3 advisors, a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew. And he said, all right, I'm just trying to make peace here. Which of the 3 religions do you like best after your own? And the Christians said, well, we're at war with the Muslims, so I guess Judaism. And the Muslims said, we're at war with Christians, so I guess Judaism. The national religion of that country became Judaism because he said, it's the easy way out. Very strange history, but we have their coins. I mean, this coin here you see here, the words on it says, Moses is the messenger of God. Did he make a rational choice or a rationalizing choice? We do that too whenever we run into trouble. We say, what's the easiest way out? What can I do to take the easy path? We choose the option that sounds safe. We choose an option based on our ideas and our feelings. We choose an option because other people kind of tell us to do it. We're not investigating deeply. We're not preparing ourselves for the troubles that are going to come. We're not thinking ahead and saying, there's going to be trouble. I mean, Jesus tells you about the tower. You know, if you're building the tower, you have to plan ahead for those costs. The third way that we'll lose our faith. Matthew 13:21. He received seed among the thorns is he who hears the word and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. What is the most important to us? You know, what distracts us? What leads us away? As an example, I have another preacher story, but first I'm going to read a verse. 1 Corinthians 10 and 12. Let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Try that in the present tense. Let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he is fallen. You may already be so distracted that you would put your faith second in your life. Now, a preacher story, possibly true, but more likely it's just a parable. It's not the details that matter, it's the moral. There's a man, and he's driving, and he gets stopped by a policeman. And the policeman gets out and comes to his window, and the man says, he's angry. The man inside the car he's furious. He says, why are you pulling me over? It was that other car. Didn't you see how he cut me off? And the policeman says, I was right behind you. I saw what happened. I need to see your license and registration. Why? It was him, not me. Well, you were driving with your window down. There's no law against that. I can drive with my window down. The policeman says, well, I was driving with my window down. And I heard those words you said, and I saw those signs you were doing with your hands. Well, you're right. I was angry. But there's no law against that either. Well, I saw your bumper sticker. This car is with Jesus. So I thought the car must be stolen. Ouch. Do you want to be that guy? Was that guy contending for the faith at that moment? Or had he been distracted by the world around him? Had he gotten choked by the thorns? I mean, that's all of us every day. When we get distracted by something that is trying to lead us away, trying to make us do something we know we shouldn't be doing. If you think deeper about that story, that policeman was saving his life. Maybe not his life, his physical life, but saving his eternal life. He was taking him and pointing him in the right direction. Back to that story of the amethyst. Now, at this point, I'm just going to call it a rock compared to the stone that we're talking about. John Heron Allen, he threw away his rock. He threw it in a canal. But our stone, we just let it slip away. I gave 3 different reasons. I mean, Jesus laid out, 3 different reasons that our stone will slip away, just one step at a time. John Heron Allen never expected to see that rock again, but it came back. If you lose your stone, will you be that lucky? Will someone else bring that stone back to you? Maybe someone here. Will you help someone else find their stone again if they drop it? I mean, this, like I said, this is a team effort. Now, obviously, the best solution is to never lose your stone in the first place. But remember those odds, 1% per person per year. Somebody here in this audience is probably not going to be a Christian next year. We should be looking out for that person, trying to figure out who needs our help. Even so, like I said, you might lose your stone in life. If you don't take care of it, you will lose it. You might get a lucky knock on your door, though, somebody trying to give it back to you. Maybe it'll be one of your good friends. Maybe it'll be one of your bad friends. Maybe you'll just be grateful that that policeman pulled you over. Will you appreciate those lights, or will you get angry? Maybe God will give you what I call a wake-up call. In a room this size, many of you have probably had that call. I know I have, where you realize at some moment you say to yourself, I'm drifting away. I'm on the path to destruction. I need to turn around and get my life back in order. For myself, I was lucky. For many of you here in this audience, you were lucky and you realized when you got that call. You realized that awful moment. You may get that call, but you may not be willing to listen. You may be so far gone that when you hear that, you may not want to come back. Keep hold of your stone. You may not be able to hear because you're so far away, there's already too much other noise in your life. Keep hold of your stone. Don't lose it to begin with. You may be so far away you don't even care anymore. Keep hold of your stone. You may be so far away that you'll be too ashamed to even come back. That happens. And I urge you, keep hold of your stone, but don't ever be so ashamed. God will always take you back. This sermon was aimed at those of us who have our stone. It's also aimed at those of us who are losing our stone. We shouldn't just hold on to our stone. We need to find those who need help holding on to theirs. Or maybe some of those out there, you've already lost your stone and you're just sitting here listening. Or maybe some of you have lost your stone and you haven't even realized it yet. Some of you out there haven't picked up your stone yet at all. And we can help all of these. We can help any of those. If you've lost your stone, if you're needing help with your stone, or if you need your stone to begin with, I'd ask that you come forward while we stand and sing.